Hello, and welcome back to my channel. So I noticed in the last video that there's a little bit of a hum to the audio, I think. And unfortunately, that is simply because my laptop is dying in the background. I feel like I have a pretty nice little laptop, but Premiere Pro just kills it. The fan is so loud, it gets so hot. So I apologize if you do hear a little bit of a hum in the background. I also realized that the way that I have my microphone set up, it sits kind of close to my face. So I think there are times whenever I probably sound like I am right in your ear, and I'm gonna try to control my voice volume today. But I get excited talking about these things, and I get loud and I get silly. So I think the last thing that I noticed, I was actually listening to one of my previous videos to see kind of what I had said already, and I realized I just get to talking, and I think I get tongue-tied and I pronounce things kind of funny. So thank you guys for not pointing out some of the sillier ways that I have said people's names. But today we're just gonna continue with the trailer. The general disclaimer is I like to talk about the details that I find in the video. I enjoy theories and kind of talking about lore from Death Stranding 1. If there's something that you just really viscerally disagree with, I would hope that you would not leave it in the comments. You are free to talk and join in, and we've had some really good comments back and forth between other fans, and so that's awesome. But if you're just gonna crash out in the comments, as the kids say, this is probably not the best video for you. So without further ado, the rest of us porters, let's get into it, because I'm excited to find some more details and hopefully get some more answers.
Ah, so Lou is the child's name. Hello? Excuse you. I too am a member of Drawbridge, believe it or not. It is an honor, Sam.
Little puppet?
What? Puppet? No, I am alive and my own master.
So in Death Stranding 1, we have Sam who finds his way to the beach after he's been repatriated by Amelie and Bridget, basically, and he's being raised by them, and we know that he makes his way back to the beach multiple times. Amelie at one point says something along the lines of, you can't stay here, you've got to go back, and she says, have you forgotten the way? And Sam, who looks like he's maybe 10, 11, is like, yeah, I've forgotten the way. And so she says, well, I can take you halfway, which I think is a play on words a little bit, because, they're in between life and death in the seam or on her beach. And so the joke is she can take him halfway because, they're in the land of the dead. So, and she's not a real living person. The thing I started thinking about, though, is what if there is some truth to that? Because what we know is that the beach should technically reach, as far as our world does. It should be a 1-for-1, because the beach and the seam are a symmetrical mirrored representation of our world, or the Death Stranding world. And so theoretically, if we are getting kind of sciencey, and I think this is what Hartman is actually working on later in the trailer, is that we should be able to find our way back, specifically using the plate gates, most likely, to kind of cross over. But if Lou is young enough to not really understand travel, and I mean, she's a small child, so she would be alone, and it takes a very long time in Death Stranding 1 to walk the beach at the end of the game in order for even yourself to return. So I think possibly the reason that Lou is trapped is because she doesn't know the way back. There's no one to guide her. There's no Amelie on the beach to help her get back home. So even if she is in a safe place, she may not have a way to return to our world because she doesn't know the way. Which brings us back to kind of the very first thing that we see in Death Stranding 1, which is Sam has a photo, and it's signed stranded with love, which in a way can be very emotional in the first game because we know that Sam is stranded, and he loses all these connections, his kind of real grip on reality. First, when he's born, and they strand him between the beach and our world by giving him that cut on his stomach and not really ever allowing him to die a true death. So he's stranded in that way, but he's also stranded with love because the action was done out of love. And then we also later, Amelie gets stranded on her beach when she decides like she's going to cut her beach off. She does it out of love for humanity, love for Sam. And I think we have to really consider that motif when we think about Lou and the fact that she's lost. I think in the last game, the reason that you travel the world with this BB is you're being forced to make a connection to something that maybe you necessarily didn't want to deal with in the beginning of the game, especially if, you had it crying a lot, because you had to deal with it, much like parents have to deal with their child whenever, things aren't going well and things are tough. So I think that could come back thematically. I think another thing is that the pods obviously serve as a connection to the beach. So I do wonder if some people have brought up if that was a safe and familiar place for Lou, if she's spent most of her time in a pod as a BB. Perhaps that's just like where she goes to. But there's another factor. We know that pods are created with a fake amniotic fluid to simulate the still mother's womb. Now, we still don't know if Lou's still mother is alive or not. We are assuming that she is not, but there's a big possibility that she is still alive somewhere, or like Cliff, she never passed over and is still searching for her baby. So we might have a situation like Mama and her baby, where the still mother's soul is still on the beach or in the seam, and so perhaps we're seeing Lou because she still has that connection to the still mother, which is how she would have been connecting in the pod. She would have been half connected to her still mother and half connected to Sam via the umbilical cord that in the book they describe plugs directly into Sam with a needle. So literally, like, I think I don't want to say their blood is mixing because I'm not really sure if it is, but that's one of the reasons there's never been a compatible BB for Sam. They say in the first game that people suffering with dooms can't use BBs. It just doesn't work. So that's one more reason that Lou is very special, because she is able to connect with Sam. There's a couple things about this clip that stick out to me purely for aesthetic reasons that I find confusing. So, first of all, Fragile's face is cracking me up. She's just like, yeah, the puppet's talking again. But behind her head, of course, we have the DHV Magellan logo in the background and then the little light. I'm not totally sure where this would be on the outside of the ship, since we haven't really seen the backside. And I think this is the top of the backside of the ship. But the shape language of the form behind her, I'm going to put some marks on it so you can actually see what I'm talking about. To me, the shape language is really interesting because we're seeing a lot of that shape language. And also, I just wanted to point out the drawbridge logo, for some reason, really reminds me of the plate gates. And so I feel like we are going to see some sort of connection between drawbridge and the plate gates. I'm also feeling like this could be one of those weird kind of like metaphors. If Fragile is dead, I just wonder, is this kind of like a sneaky way to put like the imagery of like sunlight above her? It kind of reminds me of like the setting sun, or like a very like graphic design sun rays. Another thing that is funny about Dolman is his little bitty clothes. Like, did they steal this from a doll? Does someone hand make his tiny clothes? Like, these are burning questions that I have. Like, where did he get this adorable little outfit from? Did he commission a doll to look like him? Is he capable of changing the look of the doll at will? Because I assumed it was his boy's doll that he inhabited after something went wrong, but I think we can now assume, since we've seen his corpse in the last video and it seems like he has died recently, that perhaps his son died in an accident in the Death Stranding, like in 2019, because it appears that's his son. They look very similar. They're sitting there staring at a BT, and then, you know, he's like, I have a lot of loss, I'm very sad. I'm like pretty sure his kid is not alive, unfortunately. But he had a doll. The little kid had a doll. And so I'm like, if that's the same doll, that would make sense. A lot of people carry like totems and little like keychains with them. So maybe he carried the doll with him. And when he inhabited its body, was he able to change its form? Which might sound a little weird and a little like out there at first, but the reason I ask is because when we see him in the trailer with Higgs, he hisses at him and his mask changes, much like the Japanese puppets. And what's interesting is that his whole like face makeup changes. He gets red eyes, he gets like a little bit of like a design on his face. And so that implies that he does have at least two forms. And since we already know he has ESP, that's what they're calling his powers before he gets stuck in the puppet body, which allegedly he now does not have those powers. But my question is, are we sure? Is it video game magic is how he's changing his face? Or does he have a little bit of something magical that allows him to change his form? We'll look closer at that when we get to it, but I am curious, how much can he change? Is it only his face, just like the puppets? The other thing is, look at his little loafers. Look at his little shoes. So cute. I don't know if they're painted on. They kind of look painted on. Another random question I have, why are his pants legs rolled up? He's a doll. Why is he rolling his pants legs up? I don't know if that is for like aesthetic purposes or something to do with like how the game engine is running, because I know they put him on different frame settings than everyone else in the game so that he really would look like a puppet. But yeah, I just think it's adorable. We do know that later in the trailer, which is way later, which is why I'll just go ahead and talk about it now, he has a little drawbridge jacket. So someone is making this dude custom tiny clothes, and that's adorable. So I just wanted to say that. The other reason I think he can change his form at will is because if he took the body of the doll that his child had, that doll obviously looked like that boy. And now it has really like large eyebrows and expressive large eyes, and it has a different hairstyle. So yeah, I'm just really curious on how much Dolman has control over his appearance and how much is going to be like video game magic. And if I get the option to change his outfits in the game, that would make me the happiest person in the world. I have like two things I want. I want to be able to make Sam have old man white hair because it looks so cool. And I want Dollman to wear his little drawbridge jacket whenever we're outside. I just think that would be so cute. This is kind of the first look we get at like his keychain string that he has. We know that he's going to be attached to our belt, but there are some behind the scenes photos that show sketches where he will be able to be thrown and like walk on his own. So I do wonder if there will be like reconnaissance type skills that he can have. Like maybe you can throw him in front of you to distract a BT, to have someone chase him. We know that Hideo also says that he will be full of knowledge, and also that you can get rid of him if you just don't want him around. So you can just throw him away, is what Hideo says, which is interesting.
This is Dolman. A man whose cow wound up stuck inside a... Well, you get it. He used to be a spirit medium.
When I was still flesh and bone, of course. Regrettably, my transformation cost me my talents.
Blue, where are you?
We can't quite see where his cord is attached to. Those really dark lines in the background just appear to be power lines, but I'm thinking we might actually have him literally connected to that circle, so he may actually just go in circles around the Magellan cockpit. The first real cap that we can break down is actually this one. If you darken the image, you can see the little projection that's in between Fragile and Sam, and we get a little bit of information. First, I think we can actually see the tar current that we're traveling through, which I assume is the weird tube that we see whenever Lou kind of spits the ship up. You can also see some little fishes that float by whenever the clip is playing. What I don't understand is what we're looking at by the red arrow. It looks like some sort of projection from that spot, like maybe a picture of what that area looks like. But because there isn't any color, it's really difficult to tell what we're looking at. So if you feel like you recognize something, let me know. At first I thought it kind of looked like maybe a person walking away in that small rectangle, but I really don't know. The other thing that I think is really neat is the way that this is set up like a computer screen, which Tarman does tell us the computer does most of the work. He's just kind of steering basically. And we actually see like Plategate is written in the same way that you would write like a file name. It's got apostrophe plate underscore gate apostrophe in all caps, which is kind of interesting. Like it's written very much like a code. I wish that I could read the lines under it, but I simply cannot find any footage that has a higher resolution. Like, I'm not sure what the really yellow line means. Is that how far they've progressed? Maybe how far they have to go, or maybe it's just an aesthetic choice. I also am having a hard time reading the letters under the two circles with dots, which, by the way, look just like the suckers on Tomorrow's arm, as well as Higgs's tongue and the octopus arm, so just putting that out there. But it looks like it either says DDM or maybe DOM, but I can't tell any more than that. Alright, I lied. I zoomed in. I looked hard. It looks like we have one person on the left facing the camera, maybe walking towards us, but I can't make out any features other than maybe short blonde hair. And then it kind of looks like we have someone on the right side walking away with maybe a really large backpack on. It kind of looks like we're in a street view, and then right there blocking the person with the backpack, it kind of looks like someone with a cape on. That was a lie. I looked a lot closer, and I think it's just Sam and Fragile maybe in the bunker. It kind of looks like he's got his porter outfit on, and I can't tell what she's got around her neck. Maybe she has second hands, but it's definitely Fragile. It's hard, if you look at it too long, it looks like a cape. But the longer I've looked at it, I really do think that it's Sam with a cap on, or like his hood up. But other than that, I don't know. Which, does that mean that this is a clip from the bunker footage, maybe? This would have to be prior to him being on the Magellan, because I mean, if this is what we think it is, she's explaining what the ship is, and he hasn't got amnesia, then this has to be before he gets on the Magellan and before the game starts. So I feel like that's like a clip of them while they're still in the bunker, either pre or post attack. But then, I look at it like this, and it looks like maybe Fragile is on the left talking to like a child, but then that's also weird because I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? This one is really blowing my mind a little bit. Someone brought up in my last video that Fragile doesn't seem to have any air coming out when she speaks. The other characters have puffs of air that looks like what would happen whenever you're in cold air and you kind of have that mist come out of your mouth. She doesn't have it at all. Briefly, I just want to talk about the tar. So we already know that the Magellan, when it's in the tar current, that the tar is kind of coming up and everything. So I just want to reiterate that I'm not sure that Lou is even on the beach so much as lost in the in-between, since she's having the same issues as the ship with the tar. I'm absolutely blown away by the Decima engine's graphics. I mean, we are getting to the point where it's almost an uncanny valley. I'm glad they haven't pushed it so far that it's uncomfortable. It's just the right level of animated. So I just wanted to kind of show you how incredibly detailed it is. It looks like she's looking out of the Magellan. We can literally see the reflection of like the Magellan's hull. I also wanted to give you some close-ups of how nice the costuming is. I think that the virtual photography community, which is really big on Twitter, is going to just live, laugh, love with these new photos, these new textures, this new engine. Moving on to the captain, or I guess Tarman. Is he the captain? Because they call her the commander, so I guess he's the captain. I think he has one of the most fun outfits. He has so much going on. I've just noticed what is outside his window, and I am super curious what that blue and red dotted thing is. That reminds me a lot of the monster that we see Sam fighting in the trailer that's red and has all the arms. I really enjoy the cat. I was trying to see if the cat had claws or anything like that. As far as I could tell, there are no claws, but his eyes are interesting because they don't have pupils or anything. It's just a solid thing of like chiral gold. We have some detail shots that are really nice. You can even see the stitching. Underneath his jacket, he appears to have an ascot and then probably a shirt similar to like what Sam wears underneath. We also have some aesthetic similarities here. The lines made me think of the effigy, but then looking at the legs of like the kraken squid, it made me think of the like dress area of the Amelie effigy, and I just kind of wanted to show that in case maybe you were thinking that too. One of the best things that came from this is the ability to actually see like the close-up of these pins, which is kind of funny because the texture comes across as like almost like a squishy kind of plastic. You can almost imagine what it would feel like. It's not made out of metal or leather, but it looks like that soft sort of almost foam-like texture. So I would like to know, are there people out there making these patches? Are these pre-stranding, the chiral printer? Probably not, because it says beach things, but I do think it would be neat if we find out there are people kind of like the cosplayer that are still kind of making little trinkets. And in typical crafter fashion, they have made some of the scariest monsters cute. If you look at the beach thing pins, there are little skulls, which are supposed to resemble those chiral gold skulls that you can see on animals in Death Stranding 1 or in the art book. Something that I find interesting about the tar kitty is that typically when we see a beached thing, they do not look like themselves. The things that look the closest are the whale, which makes sense because whales are some of the most like, for lack of a better word, primordial type of creatures. Like they've looked the same for so long. They're basically like still the same as like the prehistoric whales. They have the same kind of bone structure, so it kind of makes sense they wouldn't change. We have the crabs, but the crabs, as far as I know, like they're never actually a beach thing. They're just on the beach and they look dead. But as for creatures, such as the titans, the dragon, the BT lion, they all look extremely horrific in a way. Like they do not look familiar to us. So I do find it interesting that we have this example of an animal that looks very familiar. What made me consider that we might be seeing new versions of these chiral creatures because the Captain Tarman does say, where did you think these chiral creatures came from? Well, personally, I thought they came from Higgs being an absolute nut job and just trying to kill me all the time. But he acts as though there might be other, like more peaceful versions, kind of like Tar Kitty. So I am curious about its wings, which we know the Titans have wings, but they get their wings from another giant creature attaching in sort of almost a Transformers, Power Rangers kind of way. And I wondered, was the cat always in this form, or did it somehow attach to something with wings? So curious about that. The other thing that I am a little curious about is its eyes. When you look at its eyes, it has two chiral stones, we'll call them. And everything else has had a skull feature, a very prominent looking skull and like golden skeletal piece, even in the art book. Whereas this one is completely covered in tar. It has a body basically, and it has two perfect looking chiral eyes with no pupils or anything. So I am curious, if you were to, and this is a little morbid, if you were to dissect it, is it just solid chiral underneath the tar? And therefore, what is giving it life? Is it alive because it has chiral gold inside it? Or is it alive because of the tar? Like, where's the soul in this thing? Because we were told in Death Stranding 1, beach things don't have souls, and the animals don't have souls. And that's the reason that it's okay that animals die in the area that Sam's in, because they won't necrotize. They're not going to cause a void out, because allegedly they don't have a soul. So if a BT was to eat like a deer, it wouldn't blow up a city. So now I'm really curious about Tar Kitty. Is it some form of a soul having creature, and that's why it's so nice? I don't know. We see a lot of things like Dollman having a soul in a doll. So perhaps there's a soul in the cat. I don't think so. I think it's just going to be a regular old animal. But I'm just curious why this particular one is so different from everything that we've seen. This is a fun little clip. From 1 second to the next, one frame to the next, the fire actually jumps from her finger to the cigarettes. So if you find that interesting, I don't know. I'm still curious how these gloves are working. Is it static electricity? Is it something like how Cliff could just light things because he had a connection to the beach somehow? But just to clarify, it definitely just pops off her glove. She doesn't even touch it. It literally flies from her fingers to the cigarette.
Deal is America. The people here are all spread out, cut off from one another. We want you to help us bring the world together.
Sam, would you mind if I joined you?
Humor him. His knowledge and experience will probably come in handy down the road.
We can see from Sam's outfit that he has some additional things that I don't recognize from the old Porter outfit, such as the like shoulder blade area. He has something that says either U or O class armor. So I'm curious if, well, I don't know if it's armor, but it looks like a hard plastic. So maybe we get backpacks that upgrade, because it kind of looks like the backpack is a part of that, or maybe it's part of the skeleton. We also have what I thought was a battery, but now I'm considering that it's probably the chiral particle connector, and that's how we're keeping up with like the kilograms. It actually says shipboard use approved, surveillance marking something. So the thing that she's wearing over her outfit is about surveillance. I've been trying to keep up with her drawbridge ring, and so far it has not changed or looked any different. So I do think we can add that to our little theory that perhaps she is not alive, because it doesn't appear to be doing anything. But perhaps it's not like the drawbridge cuffs and it's not actually reading our stats. Maybe it really is just a communicating device. The logo on her shirt, or this is her jacket, so her second layer of clothing, is either a slanted drawbridge logo, because it does kind of look like it could be the top of the drawbridge logo where the line's going up, or it is that like APAC logo filled in. Not sure though.
Really, Sam? Your buttocks? What about shotgun? I prefer the driver's seat.
I'm not sure what this tool is that I have circled. At first I thought it was his canteen or something, but it doesn't seem to have any markings. It also appears we still have the blood bag, which is up top near his hip, and then I don't know if those are grenade pouches or ammo pouches, because it reminds me of like a pistol magazine holder. And then I noticed he's just not wearing his skeleton. At first I thought he was, but it's just like something that's kind of clipped onto his boots, basically. But he's not wearing like a power skeleton or anything at this point. So I think we can consider this kind of like the default outfit that he might be wearing in the game. Here's a closer look at that odd thing on his side. I'm really not sure what it could be. At first I thought it had like a seatbelt sort of clip. But if you recognize this from the first game, you should let me know.
Sam, do you read me? You'll first need to access the Mexico side plate gate terminal. After we've confirmed network coverage, we can take the DHV Magellan and regroup.
Not everybody wants to be part of the UCA.
That's not the plan, Sam. The UCA isn't looking to expand its borders. Just like with Mexico, they want to bring new regions into the network. Anyway, the DHV Magellan's here to back you up.
We get our first good look at the Magellan and the inside of what's kind of like, I assume, the exit area of the bunker. And I should probably say ship, not bunker, but this is kind of the hatch where he walks out of. We immediately get a good shot of the inside. It appears that our vehicles will come out of this circular area, just like in the distros. We get a glance at the ramp and a little bit of the surrounding items. So obviously we have the fire extinguisher. I don't know what those ropes are, maybe body bags. And then it looks like we have a VR headset on the far left. I noticed some weird red markings on his outfit, but I think that they're from the alarm lights going off. Hideo's kind of sneaky, so I tried to look outside of this white area just to see if it matched with what he shows in the next clip, and I don't think it does match with the next landscape area, but maybe it just seems like what he shows us next here doesn't necessarily look like what we were seeing, but maybe it is. More importantly is the weird tar that seems to be chasing Sam down this hill. Could be a shadow and maybe it just looks funny. We also have those smoke areas. I think that might be where like the wildfire stuff is, but maybe that tar is also just from the fact that the ship is a tar pit, like it has to go through like a tar lake in order for things to happen. So possibly he's fine, I hope. And in this last clip, I just want to finish up by saying it looks like we can finally climb. Before you could try to climb, but mostly you'd fall over or you'd fall down hills. The climbing mechanic was really difficult to use. It really wasn't one. Now maybe he has a cord or something that I can't see, like a climbing anchor, but if they add climbing into the game, I think that would be such a positive. One of the first things that I thought when I saw the trailer was the part where he's on the hill up in the clouds, and I thought, that's where I want to go. My goal in games is to go to the highest point and try to take a photo. Like Legend of Zelda, that was my favorite thing, and of course you were rewarded with a Korok in that game. But here, I'm hoping that we get a better climbing mechanic. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize for this being a little bit of a rambly video. Hopefully we'll get back to some more intense like detail finding, but unfortunately the weather has brought on some major sinus headaches. So if you guys are dealing with that, I'm so sorry because it is the worst. This will come out on Tuesday, so yay Tuesday, and I hope to have one out on Thursday as well. If I don't, then it'll probably come out on Friday. It really just depends on how bad the headaches are. Have a great Tuesday. And I can't wait to break down the rest of the video with you. Bye.